What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's happening with the overall market so far as we had Jerome Powell giving his speech. And this led to the market actually pumping quite a bit, and this does give some potential for NIO. So I'm going to break down what's going on with the news involving NIO, what's happening with the news involving the markets for tomorrow, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, for NIO, this thing was actually a little bit green in the after hours. We got this sell-off, especially overnight. This thing dropped about 1.73% after some more price cuts came. And that's despite the fact that Jerome Powell led the markets to pumping. We dropped pretty hard in the pre-markets and also when we opened. And then we did try to rebound a little bit on NIO, but overall it's still down. So I want to break down more details about this chart over the next few minutes. But let's talk about what happened with Jerome Powell and the Fed. So looking at how things are looking, the Fed is actually being a bit more dovish. If you look at their first year projections, they are talking about how they're anticipating some rate cuts for this year, especially later into the year. But moving forward with these big changes, for the longer term, the Fed has a 2.6% target versus the 2.5% previous target. That went up a little bit. But overall, they're maintaining their stance that they're going to be cutting rates soon. And with that happening, they ended up being very, very dovish today, despite the fact that CPI has been on a bit of an uptrend right over here. We got some hotter than expected CPI reports. Same thing right over here. CPI was a little bit hot. PPI also came up a little bit. Generally, when you see inflation kind of like increasing again, you would expect the Fed to be a little bit less dovish and trying to be hawkish, a little bit more on the hawkish side, right? But this time around, the Fed did the opposite. The Fed ended up being more dovish. Jerome Powell was very open-minded and very optimistic. And I actually saw this little tweet that came out from this person. I wanted to just read this to you. So Powell pretended to be like a Volcker. Instead, he's gone full Arthur Burns by encouraging even more easing in financial conditions, despite inflation and growth upward revisions as the wealth effect and risk appetites are back in full swing. So in case this turns out to be a policy error, they're saying that Jerome Powell is the one to blame. One could say the same thing, so that's actually a good claim. And looking at the current Fed dot plots, we're now looking at about 3 interest rate cuts by 75 basis points in total. This is what the chart looks like right here. So basically, what we're seeing for the end of the year is very similar to before. Instead of 4 rate cuts, we might see like 3, and it's probably going to be during the last couple of months of the year. But then going into the next year, they did actually increase this just somewhat. So this was not the best of news, at least for 2025. They may have to keep rates a little bit higher for longer, and they may have to adjust this depending on the situation. But then going into the longer run, right, we are seeing things basically being the same, if not a little bit more in favor of more cuts. So that's what helped the markets, not to mention their GDP revisions and such. So far, the market is like this. The market's been very optimistic, and the market started pumping, if anything. Another reason why it's pumping is because of Jerome Powell himself. Jerome Powell was just trying to be super optimistic. He didn't really say anything about how the Fed is in a position where they have to be more and more hawkish. He said that they're open to more cuts. The Fed is going to give it more time. They have new revisions, but if anything, he kept the same stance. He also gave the same speech as before, saying the same things, and he just continued to answer the same questions. So with Jerome Powell giving his speech and the way everything has been moving, this has led to more and more optimism amongst the markets and many of these institutions. And he didn't really say anything that was too hawkish. He just kept saying they'll react to the data. A lot of progress has been made when it comes to getting inflation down. They'll continue to monitor the situation, and he's very, very open to the possibility of having to ease. He mentioned they don't want to ease too much too fast. They also don't want to be too stringent on policy. They're going to be kind of in the middle. But for the most part, Jerome Powell just didn't really say anything that scared the market, and he was more dovish. So that's why the market is just continuing to hold up. Despite that, NIO had some bad news that came out. 2 analysts just slashed their NIO price targets over the last few days. That's not the best of news. So despite the fact that NIO is expected to deliver between 31,000 and 33,000 vehicles for the first quarter, and the data will be coming out very soon, many people are anticipating some interesting stuff. I also think that it is currently below the analyst consensus estimates of 44,000, which was for Q4 of 2024. That's what the target is, and that's not the best of news. So analysts are saying that but instead of NIO going up to $13, Morgan Stanley analysts are saying instead of 13, we're going to get $10. So they are kind of cutting that a little bit. And the same thing happened with Eunice Lee. I may have said his name wrong, from Bernstein. He cut his price target from 750 to 550. So NIO is getting some price cuts, which is not the best of news. On top of this, NIO still has a neutral rating from UBS. The price price ratio is still dropping as we're still seeing some weakness. Simultaneously, we're not really seeing many changes in terms of seasonality and such. So, unfortunately, not the best of news for NIO. NIO also had volume about 58 million, so a little bit more than average, but still falling. It's not the best of signs. And overall, I would say that NIO is on a bit of a downtrend, not looking the best. So, for NIO, in my opinion, we're going to try to base at this $5 area. We have a tight support right here. We'll just have to see how it reacts. With the whole market attempting to bounce, but this could help NIO to some extent. We're trying to push a little bit. So I think that there might be a little attempts to rebound a little bit. We could see this thing try to fill this gap and push up to at least 5.25. I say that because NIO is down quite a bit and it is due for somewhat of a bounce as the whole market is trying to push. And we're at critical support near this $5 area. So although the chart's looking kind of bearish, I think it might rebound first before we continue lower. So look for 5.25 or a test of a higher level, and we'll see how it goes from there. As far as SPY goes, I just want to mention that SPY is looking bullish. The daily chart is nearing a bullish cross in the PPO, and we could be looking for a push to about 523 if we keep on going. As long as it holds above 520, 523 is coming. Now, in my previous video, I did mention that I was actually anticipating that Powell would have to be a little bit more hawkish, and the reason for that is because when you look at the inflationary data, which is starting to uptick like right here, just look at the last few months, the 1 month percentage change is still increasing, and we got a harder than expected CPI the last time it came out. Instead, Powell was more dovish. So that was, something that was kind of ironic. It maybe screwed over a lot of people who were expecting something similar to what I was expecting, but it happens, guys. No one can predict everything perfectly. And Jerome Powell, he's a market maker. He manipulates stocks. So it is what it is. We just have to continue from here. SPY looks bullish. If we lose 520, watch it come down towards 518.5. If we lose that 517 is where it's going to try to bounce. So there's going to be some supports. If it breaks 520 and continues to hold above that, 523 is going to be our next target. For Tesla, we look bullish on the daily time frame, especially. I'm going to be looking for a test of 180, so we have this gap to fill. There's also higher levels above that to like 185, but for now, I do see it going to 180 over the next couple of days. For the IWM Russell 2000, we got a nice bounce thanks to Powell. We're going to be looking for an attempt to get up to about this 210 area. I could see this pushing a little bit more. Aapl is a little bit weak. It came down a bit because we had some negative news involving their sales. So it might gap down a bit and then shuffle in around this 176 area, but it could try to make a nice recovery. Not the end of the world. For the QQQ, we're looking bullish now. We got a nice bounce thanks to Powell. We got a bullish looking daily candlestick. Going to be looking for a push for 446. If we break past 444, watch 446 and 448. We might be trying to get past 444 in my opinion and push higher. For Nvda, we have 908 as resistance. If we break past this, 920 could be coming. Going to be looking for a bounce thanks to some good news from Powell. So far, the market looks like it's going to bounce, and this could help NIO to some extent to try to get up to about 5.25 and 5.38. So I think NIO is going to bounce too just a little bit, but then we'll see what happens after that. We are getting some bad news, but I do think the whole market could influence it, so watch and see how it goes. With that being said, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and peace out.